Hello. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're joining from. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to Askawayhealth live stream. So glad to have you on here. I'm Dr. Sylvia, your host this afternoon. I'm a general practitioner and health educator with Askawayhealth, and I have a special interest in women's health, sexual and reproductive health, but I do cover and talk about anything medical. If this is the first time that we're meeting, if this is the first time you're coming across our channel, I'm so pleased to have you here. Special welcome. On this channel, we talk about trending medical health, wellness, and lifestyle topics to educate us, stimulate discussion, and stimulate thinking, help us get the most from life. So glad that you're here. On our channel, we usually publish a new video every Tuesday, once a week on Tuesdays, and this Friday live streams are just an opportunity for us to get in some brief chats about some topical issue or common health question. And so I hope that you can make it a date whenever you can with me. You can find us on social media on Askawayhealth, and our website is askawayhealth.org. And of course, on our YouTube channel. So you're going to find all the links to these now just in the description box underneath this video. So please make sure you find a way to connect or subscribe if you haven't done so already. I would love to give a special thank you and shout out to every new subscriber in the last 1 week. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for joining our community of people who want to stay well as much as we can and learn about our health as much as we can. So glad to have you on board and growing our community. Right, so today we are sort of towards the tail end of a series we've been running for a few weeks now, Pregnancy Stories. And if you have a look on the channel, you'll find all the different topics we've covered in this particular area, and stimulated by a thread that went viral on Twitter towards the end of January, where lots of women sort of opening up their hearts and saying how much during pregnancy they wish there were so many things that they had been told, or how they had been, if they'd been well prepared, they would have had a better experience in pregnancy. And I thought it was really a good opportunity to try and tie these threads together and cover some common topics that came out from that discussion, and help women contribute towards educating, contribute towards enlightening, answer questions, address concerns that women might have, and not just women, friends, partners, family might have about issues in pregnancy. So this is what Pregnancy Stories is about. And today we're looking at the very special topic of healthy Nigerian moms dying in childbirth or dying just after childbirth or in pregnancy. A really, really important topic, and you'll see why as we go into the stream. But in previous editions or episodes of this series, we've looked at breast issues, we've looked at injuries to the perineum or episiotomies when a woman gets a cut during childbirth in the vaginal area. We've looked at vaginal discharges, problem bleeding in pregnancy or after birth or during labor or just after labor. We looked at postnatal depression, we've talked about urinary problems, and we've talked about blood pressure in pregnancy. So we've covered quite a few key areas, and please go and check those videos out. I'll put all the links in the description box as well, so that you can have a look at whichever one that you're interested in. So just a little bit about what else is going on in the channel. You'd have a look, and we talk of different topics at one time or the other. Of course, COVID-19 and the vaccines happens to be one of the key issues going on around the world. And we just released a video. If you look on the channel, we just published a video on COVID-19 vaccines and the question that many women, many families are asking, which is, can the COVID-19 vaccine make me infertile? And I know that's a very popular topic on social media. Sadly, the conspiracy theory around it sort of gained wings and spread like wildfire. But check out the video on our channel where we sort of look at the theory. Is there any truth to it, and debunk it and tell you what the truth is about the COVID-19 vaccines and its effect on women's fertility. So really great video to have a look at if this is something that interests you. So let's have a quick look. Let's get quickly into today's topic. Right, so I'm just going to pull up you just bear with me. Yep. So, okay. So I'm just going to pull up a couple of things. I see a couple of people lingering in the chat. Please feel free to say hi, say hello, ask a question, or make a contribution. We're trying to learn from each other. So everything that you put in, even if it's just to say hello, tell me what's happening, where you are, where you're, watching from, that would be great. So looking at why healthy Nigerian moms die in pregnancy, let's get kicking. Any loss of a woman's life from pregnancy or complications of pregnancies, so any death as a result of a woman being pregnant, happening either just after she's giving birth or within 6 weeks or 42 days of having delivered or having had a baby, is what we define as a pregnancy-related death, or a cause of maternal mortality, which is the formal term that we use to describe it as clinicians. Now, globally, according to the World Health Organization records, and we're looking at 2017, 2018 records, 810 women die every day because of pregnancy-related issues. In sub-Saharan Africa, more than 50% of that number resides. So more than 50% of that 810 figure comes from sub-Saharan Africa. And which is why I've sort of put Nigerian women in the title. What is of really great worry is that women in Nigeria dying in Nigeria contribute a huge amount to that proportion in sub-Saharan Africa. In fact, some teachers, some researchers say that Nigerian women are 500 times, let me just bring up that quote here. Nigerian women are 500 times more likely to lose their lives in childbirth when compared to most advanced nations of the world. So it's that number is mind-boggling when you sit down and think about it. And Nigeria is described as having the worst maternal mortality rate in Africa. So that's really quite distressing. It's quite damning in terms of why on earth would an event like pregnancy, which we usually would associate with birth of new life, usually a joyful occasion, but it's causing so much tragedy, such tragic circumstance in countries. And it's not just not to pick on Nigeria per se, but because the number is what it is, and it would be good to look at what the reasons are. And the purpose of this video, of this episode, is look at some of the most common causes and identify the symptoms. Because we can spend hours and hours, and lots of scientists and obstetricians, gynecologists, nurses, midwives spend lots of time talking about this topic. We can spend lots of hours talking about it, but what I really want to zero in today is look at what are the common things that make this happen. When you hear, oh, this lady just had a baby and suddenly she slumped and she died, or this lady had a baby and a couple of weeks later she died. And when you hear this happening to either someone that you know, or maybe it's come close to you, it's happened to someone that you're related to, or, one situation like that. And what is it? Why does it happen? What are the different factors related? What are the different factors mixing in to bring this kind of circumstance about? And what should you, as a person, a non-medical person, a woman who is pregnant, or the husband or partner of a woman who's pregnant, or the family member or friend, what are the things that you should be aware of? That's my particular focus. So it's going to be not a very long discussion, but I wanted us to be alert and be aware of certain things. So straight off the bat, the most common causes that we consider for women who lose their lives as a result of a complication due to pregnancy is bleeding, so loss of blood. The second is having high blood pressure, hypertension. Another cause is infections that arise around or as a result of pregnancy. There are other conditions. We could talk about things like pulmonary embolism or developing blood clots, which there's a high risk of happening in pregnancy. We could talk about those things. But what I wanted you to know was that there are a lot of different reasons There are a lot of different reasons that a woman could lose her life because of pregnancy. And the most common ones that we find in areas like Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa are bleeding problems, high blood pressure complications, and infections. Now, I'm going to look particularly into the symptoms. But first, why? Why would it happen? The biggest reason, and if you're Nigerian, as I am of Nigerian origin, you would understand, is because of poor maternal health care services. And it's important to reference that in the country, the healthcare infrastructure is not as robust as we would want it to be, and does not do as much as it should for its women. So women are unfortunately victims of this poor maternal health care services, and it's both in the urban and rural areas. So whether it's in a small community health center, primary health center, or in a tertiary institution, there may be issues at play that mean that the healthcare services available to a woman are not at the highest level or highest standard as what you would expect. And this is in spite of the fact that, in recognition of the poor maternity numbers or figures, a lot of investment has gone into training healthcare workers and trying to establish protocols to reduce the likelihood of death of moms following childbirth, but a lot more still needs to be done. In addition to that, so we have poor maternal health care services in one side. We have to acknowledge that that's true. It's really the huge, significant reason. But there are also other problems like social, economic, or cultural factors that come into play. And I just want to, let's have a look here. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm just going to, because I want you to sort of have a look at that as I bring that up. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen so you can have a look at. Okay, so you can have a look at the graphic I'm sharing there. So these are some of the main issues, because it's a complicated mix is the best way to look at this. But these are some of the key issues. There's a lot to do with a lack of awareness of health problems that could develop. A lot of that on to both the woman who is pregnant and the family or her very close association. Because if people knew or understood things that could contribute to, say, high blood pressure problems and could prevent them, then of course you'd have a less chance of having impact from death due to high blood pressure problems. So health education and health awareness are key issues. Those are dependent on how well educated and how economically empowered the woman is. So that's why we're talking about social, cultural, and economic factors involved. And so we look at things that range from the poverty level, the presence or absence of education, access to good nourishment, good food, whether it's from choice or from issues to do with lack of money or poverty status, the woman's low purchasing power, or even harmful cultural beliefs or practices that people hold to because that's the way it's always been done where they come from, and they don't have access to the education to explain why certain practices are not right. And where there are hospitals, state and federal owned hospitals, or even private hospitals, a lot of women who are not economically empowered or who cannot afford these settings avoid them, and they go to patronize or visit faith clinics or establishments and traditional practitioners as alternative healthcare providers, which can be a problem when these are not regulated or not appropriately or adequately trained to look after women who are pregnant or who might develop complications during childbirth. So it's important to identify these things. So adding to that, the mix, the patriarchal nature of the country, women being insubordinate in the country can prevent a pregnant woman. These factors play into the mix in how a pregnant woman can be prevented from getting the care that she that she needs. Okay, so right, let's have a look. I'm just going to make sure I'm not missing anything. So I'm just going to say, oh, thank you so much. I'm just going to catch up with the chats now. So hi, hello, David. Good to see you again. Thank you so much for joining this afternoon. Great to see you. Hi, Lucy. Good to see you. Thank you for joining in. And hello, Chioma Chiedo. Nice to hear from you. Welcome to the stream. Please don't forget to pop in any questions that you have or make any contribution, any observations that you have. If there's something you think I'm not, referencing properly, or something you want to agree with, that's fine. Please just put it on. Let's have a look. Now, so we looked at some of the different factors that affect women in areas, in countries like Nigeria. We said it's a mix of different issues. Let's just dive straight into how a woman can move forward despite the challenges. First, antenatal care is crucial. I'll repeat that probably a couple more times during the stream, but antenatal care is crucial because antenatal care, which is simply that interaction between a woman who is pregnant and a healthcare practitioner to monitor and observe certain things. We call them parameters. That just means certain measures during the pregnancy that can help to identify quickly or early any potential problems. And there are lots of potential problems that could happen during pregnancy. It seems to be a natural event for many women, but there's so many problems that could happen during pregnancy. So having antenatal care is important. And you get your scans at your certain dates, you get your booking, you have your blood test done, and then you have the interaction with your midwife regularly to check your blood pressure, check your urine, check blood sugar levels, and have a discussion about how things are going. So it's that opportunity to engage, and it's also an opportunity for education, for awareness, for letting women know about why they should be concerned about a particular issue and not concerned about another particular issue. But having that regular interaction, it can be done in so many different ways in both the rural and urban setting. So it's really important that it's a feature of your pregnancy. As a woman who is pregnant, antenatal care is important. It's so crucial. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about pregnancy-related bleeding because we did a whole live stream on that subject. So please check it out. We talked about the causes, women who are more at risk of developing abnormal pregnancy-related bleeding. Are there some instances when it can be avoided? We've talked about that. But I just wanted to remind us about the symptoms, because what I intend is, after watching this stream, if you are a woman who's pregnant, or you've had a baby recently, or you're watching your relative, you're the husband or the partner, a friend, I would like you to go away having these conditions in the back of your mind and knowing some of the symptoms, just so that if anything happens, you know that you should look for help quickly. Because one of the things, I know we've talked about poor maternal healthcare services, and we've talked about the different social, cultural and economical issues, but one of the issues is also being able to recognize that there's a problem and reacting to that, and not just assuming that, oh, it'll be fine, don't worry, it'll be fine. So some of the symptoms that women may experience when we're talking about abnormal bleeding, of course, is the heaviness or the severity of the bleeding. So that's fairly straightforward. Having very large blood clots, like size of a plum, or size of a guava, or the fruit that's so popular in Nigeria, like the agbalumo. That's a large size. That's passing those quantities or that size of clots, having several of them within the space of an hour or 2 hours. That's not right. That shouldn't be happening. You would expect, after you've had the baby, you'd expect lochia. Lochia is the release from the vagina of a mixture of blood, part of the womb lining that's being shed after you've delivered. So you'd expect that to happen, but not in severe quantities. That would carry on, and over the course of the next 10 or 11 days or 12 days after you've had the baby, it starts to lighten and starts to reduce naturally. But when you're experiencing fresh bleeding in large amounts, clots, or even bleeding that soaks up more than one sanitary towel in an hour, and it doesn't slow down, it's not stopping, then you should be looking for some advice. This is not something to wait and see, please. Outside of bleeding, outside of actually physically losing blood, other things could give you a clue that something is wrong. Problems with eyesight, like blurred vision. So hazy vision, not being able to focus, in addition to experiencing blood loss, may suggest something is going wrong. Feeling very cold, experiencing chills might suggest that a lot of blood has been lost. So the lady might have wet, clammy skin when it sort of feels cool and damp. And she's not responding normally, she looks unwell. That's a time to be looking urgently for healthcare. If you happen to check her heartbeat, or if she says to you that her heart is racing very fast, that's again, it's a sign of compensation. The body is trying to compensate with what's happening. It's losing lots of blood. The heart is trying to manage, but is getting into trouble. So you should be looking for help at that point. Feeling dizzy, feeling lightheaded, or as if you're going to faint, feeling weak, a feeling of wanting to vomit. Okay, so these are some of the symptoms that women might experience. They might go through if they are experiencing abnormal bleeding. And what should you do? Get to the nearest medical center, look for the nearest doctor to help, because there are so many different reasons it might happen. We've looked at some of them already, so I'm not going to go into the detail. Please just check that video out. There's so many reasons it could happen, and being able to get to health, get help quickly to check the reason and to stop the bleeding. These are crucial. So this abnormal bleeding is one of the top causes that a healthy woman who's just had her baby might lose her life because she's bled to death. And when we look at a lot of the reasons in the previous live stream that we did, some of these reasons are quite preventable, so it's quite painful. One of them that comes to mind is anemia. Anemia is a condition that can arise during pregnancy, and it's one of the things that you could identify during your antenatal visit, and that's why I said I'm going to be mentioning antenatal visit quite frequently in this stream. And when a woman is identified to be anemic, because don't forget, during the course of your pregnancy, there will be dilution of your blood because of your baby, which is a process that is natural. It happens, but your body generally should cope with it. Some women's bodies cannot, and they might just need iron supplementation to tide them until after the baby is born. So it can be treated as easily as extra iron, or just paying more attention to adding lots of rich iron containing foods in your diet. It could be that simple. But if you didn't know that you're anemic, because your blood hasn't been tested, then you might run the risk of experiencing really bad bleeding after birth. So this is a problem that we could easily have prevented, and then we're having to deal with the complications after birth. So that's just one example. Right, let's move forward. I'm going to talk about symptoms of high blood pressure. I'll just have a quick look in the chat. There's a comment from Lucy. Yeah, being able to recognize that there's a problem and reacting to it, totally agree. Some women feel it to go away. That is spot on. That is, I'm glad you referenced that, and I agree with that. And sometimes I'm not blaming any woman at all. It's that kind of culture where women are expected to sort of take it on the chin and be strong and, sort of get on with it or not complain. And there's so many different things that you could say about it, but really, both the woman and the family and friends need to be sensitive that there is a lot of pressure, stress that simply being pregnant can put on a woman's body. And so making demands of her, for example, if she's got other children and she hasn't got anybody to help to look after the older kids, and she's having to manage, or she's having to sort out their meals, sort out cleaning, sort out all sorts of things. That is extra pressure on somebody who's just trying to recover, who's trying to get over their delivery, their labor and delivery, and who's had 9 months of having to accommodate carrying an extra person who, yes, small, but has their own blood circulation and so many different things that impact on the woman who is been carrying them. So it's really important not to ignore those symptoms, not to ignore the feeling that something is wrong. I don't feel well, I don't feel right. Don't just assume that, oh, I'm just tired and that tiredness is part of it. Don't do that. Please don't just assume it's part of it and take it on the chin. If it is excessive, it is always good to have a word with your doctor, have a word with your nurse. And please, relatives, husbands, partners must support women and not make it difficult, and not just sort of, oh, yeah, just, what would they commonly say now? Drink your tonic, or, but my mother this didn't happen when my mother was pregnant. Well, some women don't have issues when they're pregnant. It's not right to compare one woman to another. So, so it's really good. It's really good to sort of have that sense of support, particularly from partners. Welcome, Dr. Helen from New Wine Platter. Thank you so much for joining. And totally agree with your comment here. Dr. Helen said it is important to talk about this. I completely agree. The numbers that the numbers of women dying every day because of pregnancy. In fact, I had a quote somewhere. I don't know what I've done with it, but it was the comment was that pregnancy has now become a life-threatening event for women, because if you're considering that Nigeria in Africa is contributing to the burden of maternal death, so you have to ask yourself then, is pregnancy sort of a life-threatening condition? The way we think about somebody having a heart attack or a stroke, should we be thinking about simply, when I say simply being pregnant, joining that group of things that could be considered life-threatening, since we are losing so many mothers to this, and what can we do about it? So quickly, let's go on to the second one I talked about, which is high blood pressure. Again, we have done an extensive discussion about high blood pressure. I don't want to go into that into more detail, because then I'm not going to stop, which I don't think is the way to go forward. But we looked at a woman can have high blood pressure and then become pregnant. That's one category, and that woman is said to have chronic hypertension. So she was already having high blood pressure and then she becomes pregnant. Now that itself has a different bundle of issues to deal with. For example, she will definitely need close monitoring during her pregnancy. A woman who knows she has high blood pressure should liaise with her doctor and her nurse, her clinicians, because it's probably important to change the blood pressure tablet that you were on before you became pregnant, and change it to one that is suitable for you and the baby, and other monitoring that you need to have during your the pregnancy. A woman who, and this also refers to a woman who develops high blood pressure. She was fine before she got pregnant, but she develops high blood pressure before 20 weeks. So that's chronic hypertension, is the term we used to refer to those women. Then there's a category of ladies who become pregnant, and then at their 20-week check, or after 20 weeks, they are found to have high blood pressure. So that's a different category. 20 weeks is that particular cutoff. And those category of women who do not have protein in their urine, we say they have gestational hypertension. But those that have protein in the urine become another category of ladies who we say have preeclampsia. And if you watched my stream or my video last week or the week before, but we talked about this at length. That is a serious condition that has so many issues, can lead to death, can lead to serious illness, can lead to liver problems, can lead to abnormal heavy bleeding, can lead to poor growth of the baby, and can culminate in death to both mother and baby. So it's a nasty condition. We don't want to go near it. There's severe preeclampsia, and then there's eclampsia, because preeclampsia, pre means before eclampsia. So if we're talking about preeclampsia and then we're advancing to something called eclampsia, you can be sure eclampsia is not a better condition to be in, but it simply means when a woman who has preeclampsia then develops seizures. And that in itself is also linked with very, very poor outcomes for the mother and the baby. So when you're asking, is it not just high blood pressure? How is a woman dying from high blood pressure? Well, let me tell you, that's simply because she has high blood pressure and develops preeclampsia. I've talked about seizures. She might develop kidney failure, liver damage, abnormal bleeding problems. So she bleeds internally, might bleed in the brain, develop brain swelling, develop problems with the lungs. These are serious problems, and all because of high blood pressure that either wasn't recognized because a woman didn't go for antenatal care, or she did, but it was a problem. She couldn't keep up with antenatal care clinics, or she didn't agree. All these doctors and midwives are just making a fuss about nothing, or her husband didn't really think it was a big deal. His mom didn't need any of these issues, all these doctors and all their big English. And how much are you paying for all these things? And when the man is the breadwinner and dictating how the money is spent, it's difficult, might be difficult for the woman to insist that, this is something that's important. But it is so important because if it's treated, we don't have to go into any of these complications. So it's not just high blood pressure, please. It is so, so important. Now, in terms of symptoms, because again, I don't want to just leave you with the conditions. I also want you to think about the symptoms. Please watch the live stream. Have a look on the on our channel, and I will put the links after this video. But have a look at the full video where I talk about high blood pressure in pregnancy. But symptoms of hypertension, there might be nothing. There might be, she might feel fine, just her usual self, nothing. And so you just detect that the blood pressure is high simply because you're checking it, maybe at antenatal or booking or one of the visits or something. So nothing. So don't always expect that there will be something showing on the person's face or the person's manner if their blood pressure is high. That's the point I'm trying to make. The next issue could be feeling very tired or fatigued. And that's why I said, you're tired and you just say, it's one of those things. No, if you're feeling tired, there's some degree of fatigue that one might experience in pregnancy, but most women with time will get over it and sort of bounce back. And any change to your feeling of well-being, you should seek. You're not being a hypochondriac. You're not bothering anybody. You should actually ask questions. You're not feeling well. Why aren't you feeling well? Let's check everything. I would feel a lot more better. I feel a lot more better. I would feel a lot better if you come and say, I'm not feeling well. And then we check everything and we don't find anything to concern us. And we just say, let's keep an eye on you. I would prefer that to just ignoring it and, I'll be fine tomorrow. I'm just a bit tired. So please, we should pick up on these things. Then there's a headache, persistent headache. There might be trouble with eyesight, like blurred vision. You might experience nosebleeds. Some women might develop shortness of breath. And let me just chip it in here. This is an entire different conversation. But women's approach to heart disease is so completely different to men. It's another one of these gender equality things, I feel. But a lot of the times women, I presented this at a seminar some months ago, and a lot of the time when women have heart problems, if you ask in the months building up to when they collapsed or had to be rushed into hospital, they experienced tiredness. They experienced shortness of breath. But it's just this, but it's just that. I think it's stress. I'm doing a bit too much at work, and nobody sort of tried to link it to go and check it and see what's going on. So women and heart disease, it does happen and we don't pay enough attention to it. We make assumptions, really important. So going back to symptoms, feeling short of breath, experiencing chest pain or dizziness, these may be some of the symptoms that a woman who has high blood pressure may show. So they should encourage us to get them checked out. What about preeclampsia? I've talked about preeclampsia. So preeclampsia is that condition where a woman is, after 20 weeks of pregnancy, her blood pressure is high. And when we test her urine, we find that she has protein. And it's telling us that the kidneys are under some stress. What are those symptoms that might come with that kind of condition? Because of it carries huge risk to both mom and baby. She might have very severe headaches. Headaches that don't get better after you lie down or you rest or you do all the things, you take all your paracetamol, it's not getting better. There might be problems with her eyesight, again, problems with focusing, blood vision. She might have double vision, see flashing lines or flashing spots in her visual field. Something different about the vision might show up. Then there might be pain in the abdomen, in the tummy, particularly towards underneath the breasts. Or on the right side where the liver is located, because if you remember, it said preeclampsia can be associated with liver problems. So there might be a really uncomfortable, constant pain in that area that women should be aware of. Vomiting, yeah, we know about vomiting and nausea in pregnancy, but beyond 20 weeks, happening profusely or just not settling, needs to be looked at, needs to be taken seriously. Of course, there might be problems with breathing, feeling short of breath, and beware of suddenly getting swollen. suddenly, there's some women who do sort of get a bit puffy as they retain fluids during pregnancy, but suddenly getting swelling fingers, the hands, the face, the feet, please watch out for those. So that's the second area I wanted us to talk about. And let's just quickly, I'll just have a quick look at the chat and see. Okay, that's fine. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was the last one, infections. Now, infections covers a broad area in terms of a woman who has just had a baby. Infections covers a wide range because it could be infections after vaginal delivery, could be infection of the womb. So there is infection in the womb, or it could be infection of the cut. You know, I said some women could have a cut, or episiotomy, or even a tear to help their delivery, to help the baby come through the birth canal. And that could get infected if it's not properly cared for. Infection could also follow a cesarean section for one reason or the other. But one of the big reasons why infection carries such a big significance, or one of the main reasons it carries such a huge significance, is infections following termination of pregnancy. Because a lot of women who are not able to access legal, since it's still illegal in Nigeria, who cannot access legal care, go to all manner of take all manner of risks and go through all manner of measures or techniques to free themselves or to remove an unplanned pregnancy. And some of them, a lot of them, because they're sort of done behind the back door or done by people who are not adequately trained to care for them, or using methods that are unsafe, can lead to severe infection or sepsis. Sepsis, when you hear that word, indicates a severe infection affecting the body, and can be caused by any type of infection. Sepsis just means that you have a very severe, life-threatening situation in the body. But it can happen. One of the reasons that it can happen that's associated with pregnancy is from termination of pregnancy. So please bear that in mind. What are the symptoms of infections? Now, they can vary depending on where the infection is from. So if it's an infection within the womb, for example, then there might be discharge, and that's a nasty smelling discharge coming, or an odd, funny colored discharge coming from the womb. And you can have a look at one of the first, I think, second or third video that we did in the channel on abnormal vaginal discharges around pregnancy. I described that in great extent. So, have a look at that to understand better. So that could be one sign. Pain, abnormal pain around the lower abdomen. There could be fever, other signs of infection like fever, feeling very tired, dizzy, faint. Following a cesarean section, there could be pain along the site of the scar of the wound. Again, discharge from the surface of that wound, so from the abdomen, or it's smelly. These are some of the clues that you would observe, and that makes you suspect that something is going on, something's not right. So these are things that should prompt you to contact your doctor quickly, contact them straight away. Of course, usually after such procedures, whether it's a cut or whether it's C-section, you'll be given instructions and advice about how to care for things properly. And yes, please stick to them. But if there's anything that's confusing, speak to your healthcare provider. What can we say about termination of pregnancy? I mean, where there's a need, there will be individuals that will try and fill that need, and regardless of whether or not they're well equipped to manage them. So to try and deal with these problems, we need to look at how women are able to access contraception, safety in terms of accessing termination or abortion services, making abortion services legal. There's a whole other discussion in that direction, but considering that it is contributing to the death of lots of women around pregnancy, it's something that's important to look at. So we've come to the end of our little discussion this afternoon. I wanted to make sure that we covered, like I said, I didn't want to go into too much detail about any specific condition, and a lot of them we have already talked about in previous streams, but I really wanted to make sure that there was this sensitivity that we had. I can't see any questions on the stream, so I think we'll just go and round up at this point. So the important thing is be aware of these conditions and some of the symptoms that suggest something is wrong. Nobody's saying that if you're not medical, nobody's expecting you to do any sort of heroics, or that is just being aware and not just assuming or relegating things to, oh, she'll be fine. I think it's increasing our awareness and increasing the radar of issues that could be linked with pregnancy, take them more seriously. I think that's something that would help. It's important to seek help promptly, so urgent medical assistance. We can't underscore we can't exaggerate the importance of antenatal care to help identify preventable conditions. I talked about anemia. The same thing applies to high blood pressure. The same thing applies to abnormal blood sugar, diabetes. Being aware of these problems early on helps you to be able to manage things properly. And this is what some of the benefits of antenatal care. Now, I want to finish by saying the period after childbirth is also important. A lot of people, yes, you do your antenatal care, you're really careful and do everything you need to do, but many people can become complacent in the immediate period after delivery. So, we said when we're talking about pregnancy-related deaths, we're looking at up to 6 weeks after, up to 42 days after. Some people can become complacent. Yeah, mom looks fine, baby's fine, everything's all sorted. Either because, of course, one is excited about the baby or just don't know the implications. So, for example, when I said, oh, the woman might have a very fast heartbeat and she's bleeding, and she's sort of getting large blood clots, and okay, it will soon stop. No, it needs to be looked into. So people may not just know, they may not realize the health implication. And that's why it's important for us to be able to reference this. The studies, the evidence shows that postpartum death, that is, the woman who's had her baby and dies in that 6-week period, contributes largely, a big chunk, towards that maternal death figure that we're talking about. So these are some of the points I wanted to reference. If you found this video useful, helpful, please give it a like now or in replay. Point a friend or relative to the video, please get them to watch it. And do consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know it's a change in the usual timing. I just got a lot of feedback about trying to swap it to this time to see what people might think, how people might find this time. So hopefully we'll get engagement with more people who are able to join at this point. But of course, if I get feedback that it doesn't suit too many people, then I might swap the time back. Let's just see how things go. Anyway, so don't forget to like the video and to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. I really appreciate it. Wherever you are, I hope you have a really good weekend and hopefully see you soon. What's coming up next week? I can't remember. I think it's something to do with pregnant women and sickle cell disease, I think. Don't quote me. I think so, but if you click the notification bell, then you'll know about it. And we have a couple of videos coming up on the channel again. We're publishing on Tuesday, so look out for that one. We're talking about challenges with belly fat. I think that'll be an interesting one to see. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.